All right, let's discuss an age-old issue that every Dungeon Master has faced at some point in their D&D career. Their players aren't engaged. Their eyes are glazing over, two guys are playing on their cell phones, and you're not sure why they don't care about your story. I'm Dad the Dungeon Master, I've been a DM for over 10 years, and I'm a published author. Here are 3 little tricks that I use to keep my players engaged. Trick number 1, surprise them. And what I mean by that is subvert their expectations. It can be as simple as they're fighting in the mountains and the ledge gives out from underneath them and they have to roll checks to regain their balance and continue fighting down below. Or what I like to do is make them have negative expectations and then subvert that. I had a scene where my players were on a dirigible, basically hanging on a boat deck below a blimp. And they had recently fought a dragon. So I described wings in the distance and it got larger as it grew closer, but it flew too high and they couldn't see it because of the dirigible and they were all preparing for a battle. They saw a large shadow sweep across the deck and the thing swept down into view and it was a raven delivering a message. While they had expected something bad and it had turned out to be something good, even though that didn't turn into like a big exciting fight scene, that sensation of having their expectations swept out from under them brought them back in. But they're like, oh, I got to pay attention. Their mind subconsciously is like, oh, I got to pay attention. Things may not be how they seem. Trick number 2, improve your descriptions. Now, I don't mean describe things better in that you describe them with more detail and make them more beautiful and more immersive. There is some value in that. But what I mean is add feeling to your descriptions. Feeling, emotions will cause people to be engaged way more than fine details and beautiful descriptions of what is objectively there. You can describe something masterfully and it still be boring. Say you're in an abandoned dwarven mine shaft. You can say the mine shaft is uniformly cut, there are abandoned tools laying to one side, and dozens of dwarven footprints going back and forth. That objectively describes what's there. Or you can say the uniform nature of this tunnel belies the precision of the dwarven craftsmen who hewed it. The forgotten tools, though they're covered in a fine layer of dust, almost ring with echoes of the work that happened here. And the dozens of heavy dwarven booted footprints that lead back and forth call to mind the bustling nature of the dwarven stronghold that once surrounded this tunnel. Both are objectively the exact same image, but one will cause your players to feel something and one doesn't. So obviously they're going to be more engaged by the one that makes them feel something. And tip number 3, and this is the most in-depth and the hardest to pull off, is integrate your players' backstories with your story. Now, if you're playing a pre-made commercial adventure, it's really easy, so easy, to take a character from one of your players' backstories and just plug them in place of an NPC from the book. You don't have to change anything about the character, just put that name, maybe slightly adjust their personality based on the way they describe them, but they can serve the same purpose in the story. You don't have to do much work at all, and now they feel like they're connected to the story. If you're running homebrew, you can take and run little side missions specifically based on each player's backstory. You can do a whole side thing, one player at a time, and go through all their backstories and really tie up all those ends. And I've noticed that even if you're focusing on one player, the other players, knowing that this story matters to that character, will make them care more because it's specifically to one of their friends. And I think subconsciously, they know their turn is coming. So that is a fun way to get your players more engaged. The highest level of this is to take all those side stories that you've played and all the backstory and the background that your characters have created for themselves and integrate that into the main plot so that they feel like their decisions, their character designs, and the backstories they wrote have driven, informed, and helped create the storyline you're all telling. If you can achieve that, your players will be engaged day after day, week after week, session after session. If you made it this far, throw me a like. If you want to keep up with DM tips, current events in the D&D world, or the walkthroughs I've done for commercial campaigns, feel free to subscribe. Here's some other videos I've done that you guys might like. Thanks, guys.